Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 64, where tonight we'll analyse Wolves' 2-0 defeat at Old Trafford, take your questions, play part 2 of Who Am I, Nocky v Tyler, and looking ahead to Everton. Also, we're going to react to Liam Keane's article regarding Wolves' finances and transfer situation for next season. Good article from Liam there, some really interesting points. So I look forward to analysing that with the team. Of course, the show wouldn't be possible without my regular pundits, Director of Football Chris Tyler and Mark Knock, the regular squad back as usual this week. Of course, the show is always recorded live. Your input is a big part of the show. You can comment live on Facebook and YouTube. Your comments come up on the screen. Any insults, comments, agree, disagree, we'll get it up there. I'll do the best to read out because obviously we'll put this on Spotify as well. But let's take us back to a sadder time in Manchester on Saturday, where it finished a quite comfortable Manchester United 2, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0. Nocky, your initial analysis on that game?
Other than the football, we had a great day. The sandwiches were fantastic. The trip down was nice. I'm pretty nonplussed about it, if I'm being completely honest. I saw a few people who were frustrated and angry. I didn't really feel any of that coming out the ground. I felt it was more, we look what we are, which is a team that needs work. I mean, Man United are the 4th best team in the division at the moment, and we're not on the same level as them. So, it was a game that we never really threatened to score. We were in the game in terms of the scoreline, but I never felt like we were in the game. I never felt we were going to score. I never felt we were going to take the game away from them at any point. And they were just better than we were. And there was no lack of effort, no lack of application. I thought the lads did work hard. Didn't feel like Brighton. I think after the Brighton game, we all kind of felt that it was an on-the-beach performance. I didn't really feel like that after this one. I felt that the lads did have a go. We just weren't good enough. They scored the goal. We didn't really react, but we didn't really change what we were doing. We just kind of carried on with our system. The shape was relatively good. I think the chances United had were all our own mistakes, really. I don't think they created a great deal. They weren't fantastic themselves, but they were just better than us. It was a game that we never looked like getting anything from. But I think it's just a marker of where we are, really, at the moment. We're not a great side. We're a bottom half team. They're a team who are probably going to be in the Champions League next year, and they were just a class above us. So it's okay to be disappointed. We didn't manage a shot on goal, but I think that there's reasons behind that. We've got lots of work to do. We know that.
Tyler, like the Brighton game, was this an example of a reality check of the golfing class of where Wolves used to be and where they'd like to be?
I think Nocky's been very diplomatic. I thought we were garbage. We competed, didn't we, before with teams like this, and Brighton potentially to a point we used to compete with at home. We did. We were never in the game. Knocking out, we weren't in the game. I mean, Dan Bentley was man of the match for a reason, wasn't he? I mean, it was 2-0 and he's made, I think, 5 or 6 saves. If we'd have come away from that knocker 4 or 5, we couldn't have argued, and then we probably would have been a bit more wound up about it. But we travelled down together. We both had the same feeling that we're getting nothing from this today. And I think that's why we almost weren't bothered, but I think that's why we sort of got it in our head that we weren't going to get anything, and that's why we were comfortable with the result. I just felt we're miles off them. And we've competed with Man United at home, we've beat them, away we've beat them. You went a year ago, Ryan, to United away and we won the game and we were comfortable in possession. We looked a threat. I didn't think there was anything in that performance apart from Bentley to take any positives away. And how far are we from a European place next year? Miles away. How far are we from a potential top 10 finish? I think we're miles away. I think we're well off the curve now. And I think that's the biggest takeaway for me is how far we've fallen, Ryan. I think you've hit the nail on the head from where we were to where we are now. The gap's enormous.
Yeah, the Wolves have seemed to have fallen away, Nocky, in the last few years. It'll be Wolves' incredible first season in the Premier League, deep in the FA Cup, and then European football. It was like a dream come true. It was almost all the things that we wanted apart from a major honour. An incredible few years, but through bad recruitment, through COVID hurting us because Wolves and Molineux were a big combination, really, in those days of Nuno that got broken up. But what else is it, Nocky, that's gone wrong to leave Wolves where they are now?
Recruitment's a big one. You know, we lost Jota, and I do understand why Jota went, because if you look at the amount of games he's played for Liverpool, he's a player who catches a lot of injuries. It's as simple as that. You can't afford to carry a player who you can sell at that sort of price tag. But it was a replacement element of it that didn't work. I think we were assuming Neto would come back and he would be the player that he was hinting he may possibly be, but he hasn't hit that level. Daniel Podence shows flashes, but there's no consistency there. The recruitment's just been really poor. The Fabio Silva saga was strange when you need goals and you loan him out, and then he doesn't work at that club, so you loan him out to another one rather than bring him back and put him in. There's just been some really strange decisions made. Bring in Sasha Kalashnic when you know his injury record, where that is. We've brought in Diego Costa, who, you know, I'm a big fan of Diego Costa, but best one in the world. If he plays every game of the season, he'll get you 3-4 goals, absolute max at this point in his career. So the recruitment's been poor. Bruno Lage probably should have gone at the end of the season. I think we're all in agreement on that, and we could have had a rebuild. But I mean, there are green shoots of recovery. You look at the progression we've made under Lopetegui, and this isn't his squad. He's brought in a few players, you know, but it's not his team as of yet. So he still managed to take us from 4 points from safety up to, you know, we were relatively safe with 4 or 5 games left, weren't we? So there's stuff there for us to work with, and you would expect there'll be a lot of movement in the summer. What we can bring in is going to be dependent on what we can get rid of, obviously. But I just think it's a mix of things, really. And football goes around in cycles as well. You know, we had a cycle of players, we hit the ground running. We had real momentum when we got into the Premier League. But then it just naturally fades away. You know, we relied on Jimenez. He was brilliant for us for a few seasons, and then the injury came, and we didn't want to replace him, whether it was a sentimental reason or whatever. We just didn't really replace him. But football does go around in cycles, and you know, I think we can get back to a stronger level. And I don't fully agree with Chris. I see where he's coming from, but I don't think we're a million miles from the top 10 team. I really don't.
Well, what I would say, bring you into this, Chris, is that with a team that's predominantly not his, granted, Lamina and Dawson have probably saved Wolves' season, but the rest of the players aren't really his. He has found a way of playing to give Wolves an incredible home record in the last few months, not conceded a goal, beating everybody, beating some good teams, beating a rival. It's been good at home. It's not always been fun to watch, but who cares if you win? You want to come home on a Saturday night happy that your team's won. And at Molineux, it's been a fortress. So if the manager can get this out of a load of players that don't suit the preferred system, what's he capable of if he's backed?
Totally agree. And I'm not knocking him at all. I think he's done an unbelievable job. And, you know, I think we all thought, as we've talked about before, 1-0 down away at Everton on Boxing Day. We're thinking, where do we come back from this? Think we're down. And for me, I suppose it's the clear difference between the home form and performances and the away form and performances. We had a laugh, didn't we, coming out of the ground, Nocky, saying, you know, the pitch is the same size, the goals are the same size, but Wolves are a totally different team away from home. Totally. You know, how do you keep the amount of clean sheets we have at home and not dominate teams and performances, but against Villa and Palace, we weren't brilliant. Tottenham, we weren't brilliant. But I never doubted we were.
There's an appetite, though, Tyler, at home.
Yeah, we were. I always thought we were going to win the game. There's like a desire. That's it, Ryan. Appetite and desire. And that's not there away from home. We've got a soft underbelly. We've talked about it before. We must be the easiest team to play against for so many teams. This is a Man United team that didn't have Rashford. They weren't actually that good on the day, were they? Knocker, we were saying they lacked quality. They weren't brilliant in the final third. And they've still strolled to a 2-0 victory. And you're saying, Knocker, that, you know, we're not a top 10 team. I can name 9 teams now for me that finish above us next season easily.
We'd still be top 10 then, though, wouldn't we?
Maybe we can sneak it. But we've talked about it before that if anyone left, apart from Joe Gomez and for me, Kuna, if anyone left, I wouldn't be bothered, Ryan. And what does that say about the relationship between the fans and the team? I think a lot of it is blind loyalty, ultimately. I mean, Diego Costa, people are talking about giving him more time. I mean, come on. Let's be realistic here. There's no chance Diego Costa should be featuring for us next season. No chance whatsoever. We love him. He's been a cult hero. is a great wind-up merchant, but he's miles off it realistically, isn't it? What are the team pushing for the top 10 has Diego Costa in it?
Well, it depends what the aim is next season. I know we'll talk about financial fair play and that, and maybe the aim again next season is just to stay up. But I can't imagine Lopetegui's come all this way. All his staff live locally. They've moved their families over. Surely they've not come over for like 6-7 months to do a quick job and that's it. There must have been guarantees. So we'll talk about that anyway. I want to go focus back on the game and talk about some of the things that I didn't think were too bad. Start off with you, Nocky. I actually thought the two centre-backs were okay. Yeah, Max got sort of pulled out of position for the goal.
Gave the first goal away.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is he got pulled out of position for the first goal, but his overall performance wasn't bad. That's not an area of the team. I thought Wolves were getting pulled to pieces, Nocky.
Yeah, I mean, I said at the start, I thought the shape was good, but he was very naive for the goal. He stepped out to try and intercept the ball that he's never getting to. If he holds his position, holds his ground, then Anthony's not got a run in on goal and an opportunity to square it. So, yes, the shape was good, but when me and Chris, when we were talking about it during the game, every chance they had was a Wolves mistake, and it came from either defence or the midfield.
Everyone.
So, that we were relatively good in our shape, but we lacked a bit of belief. I mean, the first goal itself came because we refused to cross the ball from a right wing position. I think it was Pedro Neto who was in a position to cross, chose not to. We ended up bringing the ball all the way back to Bentley. Bentley sends it downfield, they intercept it, and then you're talking 25 seconds later, the ball's in the back of our net. So I think the away form, I don't think it's a lack of desire. I think it's a lack of confidence. I don't think we believe that we can win games away from home. And whereas at home we feel like we've got more of a grip of things, we feel like we can hurt anyone in the division. Whereas away from home, we're just really soft. I don't think there's a belief there that we can do it. But yeah, I mean, Dawson had a good game, Kilman had a good game, but you can't make individual errors against teams like that. I mean, they'll punish you, and that's exactly what they did. So they weren't great in terms of attacking us. They had plenty of the ball, they had plenty of possession, but they never looked like they were going to really hurt us. But you can't make those.
A lot of self-inflicted problems.
Yeah, every opportunity they had was a Wolves mistake. I don't remember them ever taking us apart or ripping through us in midfield. As I said, the shape was good. We were relatively solid, but you can't make those basic errors at this level because you will get punished.
Absolutely. There's a really good point here that Joe makes. The problem was the attack, not the defence. And I would agree. I thought the shape was good in midfield as well. But the problem is, if the ball keeps coming back at you, you haven't got a chance, and the ball can't keep coming back without eventually there being a breakthrough or a clear-cut opportunity, because that's football. So for me, on Saturday, one of the most disappointing things was the lack of responsibility taken by the wide players. I thought Costa had met two top six centre-backs that were too good for him at this stage of his career. There was nothing from the wide players. Granted, we always give Matheus Nunes a bit of slack. It's not his fault he's playing there. I didn't see enough commitment trying to beat his fullback. That guy is the fastest centre midfielder in the Premier League recorded this season. Believe in yourself, run at people. Didn't see that. I saw lots of effort from Neto. I didn't see any productivity. I don't know what he did, and that's frustrating. He looks a shadow of himself. Yes, there's lots of effort and trying. I mean, he got hooked quite early on in the game, which is sort of reflects really what I'm saying. But
I don't think, sorry to jump in, mate, but I don't think Cunha and Costa helped, because you could spot it from the away end. They were pretty much in each other's pocket. They were both taking up the same space on the edge of the box. They weren't breaking into positions that you could try and drag defenders across or make it uncomfortable for United. They could just hold their shape because there was just no movement from Cunha or Costa. They were just so close together. So, yeah, I agree that we need more from the wing players, but you need that movement up front to try and make life uncomfortable for United's back four, because if they're marking two basic statues up front, then they're not going to break shape, not going to break position. So Costa's got the experience to not affect a game with the ball, but he can affect a game without a ball.
And he's done that well at home, but away from home, he's a different player.
He was completely static against United. He just didn't move. He was running in straight lines from the halfway line to the edge of the box and back again. So, yes, the wide players should have done better, but you need something for your forwards to hit.
But what balls were put in, Knocker? I was pulling my hair out with Neto, wasn't I? Because he was just getting it and just turning back inside, checking 5 yards back.
Yeah, he was terrified to cross it.
I'll do that for you. Jokes aside, anyone can do that. The fullbacks weren't bombing on.
So just jumping in there, Chris, then, are we stuck in a transitional period where the manager wants to retain possession, or are we stuck with players who aren't confident to deliver the ball into a centre forward? Because I understand that the the desire to control the game with the ball. And I mean, obviously, Man City are a million miles away. They get into position, there's not a pass on, they start again, and they recycle and they go again. And a lot of the top modern teams will do that. Whereas I think Wolves aren't quite there. And sometimes you want to whip a ball in. Neto can cross the ball. Of all the things he can do, Neto can cross the ball. Why is he not doing it?
But that's what we were saying on the day. If you whip a ball in, what's the worst that's going to happen? They'll clear it. Or you might get a corner, or you might recycle it. We weren't crossing the ball in. I mean, like Knocker said for the first goal, we ended back with our own goalkeeper. So then you're going long anyway, and you're back to where you started. I think confidence is an issue. Neto obviously isn't the player that scored that goal at Southampton or the winner against Chelsea. That's not the Pedro Neto we're seeing at the moment. There's been a lot of talk around Sarabia's not getting a kick. Podence is on the bench, he's our top scorer. Adama's not getting a kick. I don't know, it does make you wonder. And I thought, this is a game, obviously we're safe, we're comfortable. Surely it's a time now to maybe have a go, to experiment, to play your Adamas. Why not go? 4-4-2 with two natural wingers and two strikers. Why carry on with the experiment of Nunes on the right wing when...
In response to that, though, Tyler, would you say now there's a clear message coming from the manager that those players, if they can't be involved in a pretty much meaningless game, they're done at Wolves? That's the message. And he's thinking, I want to focus on who's going to be here and who's not.
Well, he signed Sarabia.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a 5 million. It's a punt. It's not worked out.
We haven't seen João Gomez since Leicester away. That's his signing. So there are two signings off the top of my head he's made that aren't featuring really at all. I thought João Gomez was the only positive from Leicester away. We've not seen him since.
Just jumping into the Leicester away performance.
Just questions, isn't there? There's just a few questions.
Nocky, just jumping into the Leicester away performance. We all went to that game. For half of football, Wolves were in control, apart from one stupid mistake. That it shows they took the home form into the away form until Sarr made that ridiculous error and come out and clattered Vardy for no reason whatsoever. So it was there. I just don't understand why because the belief Wolves were dominating the midfield that day. Lamina was just dominant. No one got a kick. He kept on coming on, stealing the ball, recycling it. Wolves won it. Looked fantastic. That belief away from home now, if you go to Arsenal and do this, it's going to be embarrassing on the last game.
Yeah, but for me, that first half was probably a little bit of a false dawn. I mean, let's not forget this is a Leicester team that have won one game in 14, and that's against us. So dominating the midfield against a team like that...
Unless we ain't got to go there next year.
Well, it's kind of irrelevant, really, in terms of what your opposition are. I think the level we are at is the position we're at. And yeah, I get it. I wanted to see more against Man United. I wanted to see more attacking influence and attacking flair. I just don't think we have the ability to do that at this moment in time with the squad that we've got. I think we were built to survive. We brought players in to survive. Your Laminas, your João Gomez, are holding midfielders. We brought in Kuna, who isn't a natural striker, but he's someone who will offer you a lot of work rate. Sarabia, I think, was a punt. You're hoping that those assists that he's had recently are going to come into his game in England. It hasn't worked out that way. So I think we plucked any pieces that we can to try and create a situation that will keep us in the division. So, yes, the Leicester first half was positive, but the negatives are we created 4 or 5 opportunities to kill the game off. We didn't take them. And they turned us around and they beat us. So I think you've just got to put it into perspective against Leicester compared to a Manchester United who were just far and away a lot better than us.
My point is, though, Knocker, if you go in, we're safe now, we're done. It's irrelevant where we finish. So why would you not be a little bit more experimental? Why would you not?
I agree, yeah, I do agree. I think the issue is, though, I don't know where we have the quality to do that. Because Adama, I mean, Podence come on, and the first thing he does is try a backheel flick on the edge of the penalty area when there's no one in space to do it. So,
but does he or does he not go forward? When he gets the ball, what's his first instinct?
Yeah, he does. He is. He's naturally drawn to go forward.
He does.
You know my feelings on Podence. He starts every game. He's top scorer, but there's obviously reasons behind it why he can't get in the team at the minute.
So, but then again, why bring him on then for half an hour if he's not going to feature? This is where I think there's a lot of questions at the moment where he seems to. He's been cast adrift since Forest, where we scored the equaliser, and then he comes back in for half an hour at Man United. Sarabia starts games and then he's not seen for 3 or 4 weeks. There seems to be more questions than answers at the moment, and whether or not that's because he's assessing his squad and who he's got, but some people have made the point Sarabi's not playing because he's being saved for next season. There's an argument about that as well. If he's a banker for next season, he doesn't need to review him now or look at him. But
surely you learn your trade, though, don't you?
Exactly. On the flip side,
minutes keeps you fresh and strong, and this is a tough physical league.
We said that game was perfect for Sarabi on Saturday.
Because they give him space as well.
Get him in the number 10 role, get him out wide. I don't know. I don't know. I think there's just we're going to come on to it. It's a big summer, isn't it? Obviously for transfers. Liam's article sort of touches upon that, but away from home, something drastically has to change because 2 away wins all season.
Now, you guys might disagree with me. Now, I've always believed that you should set up the same away from home as you should at home. The only difference is everything else is the same. You might not have your fans. It's a football pitch. It's 11v11. Yeah, you've travelled. I've never understood this mentality to set up differently away from home. I don't get it now. Psychologically, travel, home support, those are things. But physically, it's the same. It's a football pitch in 11v11. If you're good enough, take the opponents on. I maybe people can come on and comment why there's a big difference, but the best teams don't respect anybody. We're going away from home. We're over-respecting everybody, and we're letting teams beat us because of the negativity. It was a positive formation at Man United, but it was a negative approach. We had, I think, it ticked a lot of boxes. We thought it was a reasonable team, but it was just so. There was no bravery from Neto. There was no bravery from Matheus Nunes. There's no brave. I mean, Kuna, as he does every game, Kuna went on one fantastic run and got brought down, brought 3 or 4 players. I want to see more of that because him picking up the ball from deep is exciting. He's definitely got that in his locker, but it was a game that Costa was dominated and it raised questions. I love that guy, but one area I thought was also okay that didn't do too bad. I thought the centre midfield was okay. I didn't think they did much wrong. Would you disagree with me on that? Because I don't think the midfield looked out of place at all.
Well, I think that alludes to what Knocker said. We were comfortable. We were okay. Their attacks came from sloppiness and mistakes from Wolves. Man for man, midfield-wise, there wasn't much in it. Like Knocky said, there wasn't a spell of pressure from United. There wasn't a phase in the game where they were bullying us, where they were all...
Wolves didn't get pumped, did they?
Where you thought they're going to score. Everything came from a Wolves mistake, and I think that's what's disappointing. And without coming back to the Podence bit, Podence did a flick second half and everyone went berserk at him. But he's trying something. He's trying to do something.
Yeah.
Whereas Neto, first half, I think literally every time he got the ball, just checked and passed it back. What's the point? Do you know?
He's probably saw Wan-Bissaka and thought, what's the point as well, to be honest.
Maybe, yeah, but I'd rather someone tries a flick and it doesn't come off, for example, than just take the simple option all the time, because at some point you've got to gamble. And I would just like to call Semedo out, because I'm sorry, that without being too brutal, that defending for the second goal, he's just got to hold his line.
Yeah.
Why is he running back with the striker? I mean, it's stuff you learn as a kid.
It was quite naive, wasn't it? Yeah.
Even when he gets back, he makes a mess of it, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's quite naive. Let's move on to a positive from the game. There isn't many. Debut boy in goal, Bristol City, signed for about 70, 80, 90 grand for competition, maybe reserve keeper. Probably doesn't look as comfortable with his feet like, but in terms of shot stopping, I don't think that guy could have done much more. In terms of a debut shot stopping wise, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought, you judge him by the goals, don't you? The first goal has got absolutely no chance. It's basically 2 or 3 on one, and the second one goes in off the post. So there's nothing he can do about that. He made 2 or 3 really good stops. I've seen a lot of people saying he should be our new number 1. I want to see a lot more of him before I would be comfortable committing to that. So whether he gets a run between now and the end of the season, we'll see. But I don't think he did anything wrong. Everything he needed to do, he did quite well. Made a couple of really, really fantastic saves, and he was a busy boy, wasn't he? So yeah, I'm pleased with him. I thought his distribution was pretty good as well. I thought he looked relatively comfortable with his feet.
No, his short distribution was good, but quite a lot of his long kicks got punted out of play. Quite a lot of time he was hitting it over the head.
I liked him second half. He seemed to fit a few in. I thought that I might be wrong, but I thought he looked better with his feet than. But I was watching. We talked about, didn't we, last week? Or sorry, when I was last on, about Brighton's approach to playing Jason Steele over their number 1. And if you watch Brighton at Arsenal the other night,
Fantastic, wasn't it?
That shows you a goalkeeper who's comfortable with their feet and the value they can add to a team, because his footwork was super. And Brighton don't pay
Those drilled
it.
half side volley, 3 balls he's putting through to the wingers were off the chart.
But they're like we talked about, they're sacrificing the better goalkeeper from a handling
footballing point of view.
For the footballing point of view, and we seem to be in that limbo, don't we, about what's the way forward? But I'm sure it's something we'll talk about between now and the start of next season. But
just to call that
set the mould.
Just to call that out, Tyler, though, there seems to be at the moment a lot of moans and groans from the fan base when Wolves are trying to play out from the back and going. Now, I understand the frustration, I understand the concern, but there has to be an evolution, because that's the way all the teams are going, and we have to do that as well. And if we don't start doing it, we're never going to do it. Now, I trust Dawson on the ball, I trust Kilman on the ball, they're fine. Either keeper, not sure about that. But this is the way teams are playing football now. You get pressed, you've got to be able, unless you've got a big centre forward you're comfortable to lump it to. So we have to go through this pain, we have to go through the evolution and get our players to play it from the back, and we have to back them as fans. I know there's frustration and people don't do it, and inevitably sometimes it leads to a goal. But if we're going to have to move forwards, playing a modern style of football, we've got to suffer this and get our players used to it.
Yeah, but on that, are you trusting Semedo and Tote?
We've only got to trust them for 2 more games.
Potentially. But
I trust Hugo Bueno all day playing out from the back.
I watched how Brighton did it. I watched that game and thought, crikey, we're miles behind this. Miles behind it. Because we are. We think, we've talked about it, I think, for a couple of years. Our players aren't as good as we think they are. And Kilman aside, I don't think any of the back four are that comfortable with the football. I'm not sure Dawson's as comfortable as you make out. I'm not sure Semedo is. And Totti certainly isn't. So you're looking at, a whole new back four if you want to play from the back, plus a new goalkeeper. It's a big change, isn't it, to what we're used to. So I get why there's nervousness, because we've seen Sarr, get close to throwing a few in, haven't we? So how do you do it? It's a big change, isn't it, I think, to evolve from where we are now to a Brighton or a Man City. Even Arsenal struggled with it, didn't they? We've seen them struggle with it recently, and they've got top footballers. So I think either it's full-on commitment, we go down that route and we buy the players to suit it, or we have to think about it and go back to a bit more of a basic approach. But I think that.
I think, going back to the positive, it was a good debut from Bentley, and he was short.
Down to his right.
Yeah, fantastic. Around the post.
World class. And he made probably 2 or 3 of them. But this is my point at the start. I mean, we're talking about him making 4 or 5 brilliant saves. Could have been a bit of a hiding, really, couldn't it?
And that's without really Man United having to do much. And as you've said a few times, this is more of a case of Wolves gifting them opportunities and possession rather than cutting us to shreds. So, yeah, I think we are on episode 43 of the Wolves Report. We're on opposite 44, aren't we? I've completely forgotten where I am. Got excited about it. Episode 60, one pint of Guinness. Episode 64 of the Wolves Report with Director of Football Chris Tyler, Club Captain Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester, who's probably had 1 more Guinness than he should have because he's forgotten how to count. We'll move away from Man United now. Let's talk about Liam Keane's article that came out regarding the finances. Good article by Liam. Obviously, the local paper's got a relationship with the club, and they get information about what the plans are and whatever the club want to tell them or share at that point in the season. And it does raise some concerns. Obviously, there's a lot of common sense in there in terms of, obviously, there's just not a bottomless pit of money, mainly because of financial fair play restricting you. But Nocky, your take on the article of what Wolves possibly face in terms of restrictions next season?
I think it's a really well-written piece by Liam. I think it's a really interesting read. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I mean, we've made the comparison to Brighton, haven't we? You look at Brighton's transfer business. I mean, Brighton, for the first 3 seasons we were in this division, absolutely stunk out Molineux. They were horrendous. They were awful to watch, awful to play. And now they've come down with some smart business, playing players like Matoma, Caicedo for peanuts, really. and they're probably the best footballing team I've seen down Molineux this year. So if we haven't got a huge budget to spend, okay, we haven't got a huge budget to spend. What do we do with it this year? We bought in Goncalo Guedes for 25 million, which was a complete and total disaster. I'd argue the best signings we've made this season is Lamina for what, 9 million quid, and João Gomez for 15 million. So
I'd say Dawson as well, mate.
And Dawson for 5 million. So you don't have to throw money at it. Obviously, we all want the mega expensive signings, but the Fabio Silvas haven't worked out. The players that we're throwing the money at haven't predominantly worked for us. So if we have to work on a tighter budget, I mean, I'm not convinced that the article's 100% believable in many ways. I think that we spoke about it yesterday, that it feels like an exercise in managing expectations going forward into the new season.
Which is understandable. And equally,
yeah.
just to jump in, but equally, you can only work with the information that you're given, and that's what's been told.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's what's going to be written.
Yeah, I don't think for a second Liam's making this up. Obviously, I think obviously
Well, I hope not, Liam.
The journalists are fed to are fed information from the club that they report on. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I think they are trying to manage expectations, and I think it's something that they've not done very well in the past. I mean, when Jeff Shee came in, we were going to be bigger than Man City, weren't we? So you've got to manage supporters' expectations. If we have a lower expectation this season, and maybe we're thinking, well, let's finish around about mid-table or top 10, and we overachieve on that, then fantastic. But there'll be money to spend. I mean, you don't keep a manager like Lopetegui unless you are showing a level of ambition. He doesn't sign a contract unless he knows he's going to get backed. He's too good a manager to just sit in a relegation fight every year. So I don't think we'll throw money at it, but the list I come up with a couple of weeks ago, I think that's going to be relatively close, and we'll have plenty of money to spend on the back of that, and we'll clear out some dead. We'll bring in some sensible signings, and I think we'll be fine. I'm not overly worried about it.
I mean, I've been talking to a few people about this, but obviously, Tyler, Wolves were in a desperate situation in January, and they knew that before when they got Lopetegui, and they waited for their man. It turned out to be the right decision because Wolves are playing Premier League football again. But it was an investment in January to save the loss of a £400 million asset that they've bought for 50 million, that they've pumped money into. You have to throw a bit of caution to the wind now, because if you don't, that asset that's worth now, and this global branding that Wolves are, and the growth that's happened, that's going to be a lot of wasted time and money. So you can understand why that Wolves are probably going to have to pay the consequences a little bit in the next transfer window, because to protect their asset, they've had to spend money in January.
Yeah, but I'm all for this new model of not young and hungry to a point, but I'm all for it. We've gambled, and we've probably, we could list the players we bought, and we could all argue whether they've been a success or not. But I'm all for your João Gomez's, your Mario Laminas, your Craig Dawson. I'm for people who want to be here.
And those guys want to play football.
They want to play for Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, Gonzalo Guedes clearly never did. Yeah. And it's a move that has been done by an agent to suit however many parties financially, but it should never have happened. And I'm it's hard to say I'm sick of those deals because they've served us well. You get the odd Pedro Neto, who was fairly cheap from Lazio, in a deal with the other guy, Bruno Jordao, and one of them has worked out. So you might get one. But on the flip side, how many have we got that haven't worked out? Matoma, Knocker just mentioned him. He cost £3 million. You don't have to spend 30, 40, 50 million pounds to get good footballers. You don't. You're telling me that, the South American market, the European market, you can't pick up players, improve them, sell them on. And
well, how much would have João Gomez cost if he was playing in the Premier League? If we were, it'd have been impossible.
Yeah, I'm not going to compare him, but look at Declan Rice. He's been talked about. They'll sell him for £120 million.
It's never worth that.
What are you getting for that? You're not getting any goals. You're not getting any assists. You're getting a neat and tidy defensive midfielder.
But he is very good.
He is. But how many of them? That's my point, Ryan. How many of them playing Portugal, Spain, France?
You're right.
Argentina. Casado. I mean, look, he's a prime example. Arsenal apparently want to sign both of them. Look at the difference in profile. You're paying an English tax, aren't you? But without going into too much
best part of 200 million for them too, yeah.
I want to revert back to my initial point. I want to see people at the club again that want to play for Wolverhampton Wanderers, and I don't care if they cost £1,000 or £1 billion if they're the right profile. And I think the manager's come out and said he will speak to every new signing, he will speak to every player to make sure they're the right profile for what he wants to do. On with Nocky, there's no way he signs, there's no way he comes unless there's a guarantee of you're in control of what you want to do. So on with Nocky, I'm not worried about it. I agree. I think it's about managing expectations. It's about saying we're not going to be spending the big bucks anymore. But we don't want to see that. We've seen 35 on Fabio, 45 on Nunes, 30 on Guedes, 30 on Semedo. I'm sick of it, to be honest. Get me back some players that want to be here, want to play for us.
And that sort of rolls me into my point nicely. There's the technical advisor. I think he's called. Well, I'm trying to say his surname. It's Fran Garagaffa, I think he is. But this is a guy that has worked wonders. Now, I know you guys. We talk and you take the mickey out of me in terms of my XG. But this is a guy stats based, results based. But he studied these players we wanted to sign in January. Mario Lemina playing in France, £9 million. He's having an absolute blinder. Craig Dawson, and in fairness, Bruno Lage wanted Craig Dawson. What a signing. But it just shows, Tyler, you're absolutely right. These players are out there. These profile of players are out there. If they're not playing for a fashionable club or they've got a fashionable name or they're playing fancy football, Brentford crunch the numbers like crazy. And the footballers they get for virtually nothing, and they've got now, suspended till next year, but a £50 million striker in terms of Ivan Toney, they're out there. And if we've got a technical advisor, he's been brought in to do this for Wolves. Not just to sit there, and this is why we're moving away from Mendes, to study the players, to scout them properly, to look at their stats deep, not, I can get you this guy from Monaco, I can get you this guy from Valencia. This player for this club fits the profile. He's a good guy. I found out these are his technical attributes. He can fit the profile here. Nocky.
100% that year. I think there was talk that when we were trying to sign Craig Dawson, Mendes wanted to push us away from that. He had some other options that he thought would better suit us. Mendes has been brilliant for us, but the Mendes merry-go-round will eventually benefit George Mendes. That's how he operates. So I'm all for just trying something a bit different. And we've said already, we've thrown money at players and they haven't worked out for us. And if you can go out there and really become a master of your art and focus on these players and use those number crunches, I've no problem with that, and just assess players and do it the old-fashioned way and bring them in. You give yourself an opportunity, and it is the way the football is now. You've got to bring in players, improve them and sell them, and that's the whole point of academies these days. You don't expect players to come through and play for your club anymore. You bring them in, you make money off the back of them. So you can go all around South America, the European markets. The players are out there if you just ambitious enough to go out there and study them and try and bring them in. So I'm with Tyler. I'm all for this model. I want the club to be sustainable. I want it to be safe, and I want it to have a future. And if you keep throwing money at things, there's no guarantee you're going to do that. So sensible approach to it. You've got to be careful because you don't want to end up with the Southampton model where you're selling your best players every season and eventually it'll catch up with you. But if you've got a Brighton model where they're selling players on for ridiculous fortunes, going out, investing half of that money, bringing in 2 or 3 new players and selling them on again. And if you get that right because you've done the due diligence on it and you've done the research, then it's a model that can work for you going forward. And it's absolutely work. I know we keep referring back to Brighton, but you look at the improvement in them over the last 3 years. That's your benchmark. That's what you can achieve if you really focus on what you're bringing in.
Absolutely. You are listening to episode 64 of the Wolves Report with Chris Tyler, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester.
64, Ryan, yeah?
Definitely 64 this time, yeah.
63 about 5 minutes ago.
I've topped up my Guinness. No, it was 43. I'd forgotten the numbers.
You sneakily did that, didn't you, earlier? I saw you sort of sneakily topping it up.
Yeah, I muted the
episode 2 of the Wolves Report.
Episode 2 of the Wolves Report. Yeah, it will be if it keeps on like this. Episode 64 of the Wolves Report with Chris Tyler, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester, just responding to Liam Kim's article yesterday regarding the transfers going forward. I'd be surprised if Wolves didn't spend in the summer. There's no way we've got this far to do this.
No, Ryan, what you're saying is spend. Obviously, they're going to spend what you're thinking, like 45, 50 million a player like we've done.
Just to jump in a second, thanks to Carl Whitehouse who's confirming what the episode is on my podcast. Thanks, Carl. Just in case I'd forgotten what episode I was listening to. Thank you, Carl.
Alex Scott's been talked about a lot, hasn't he? 20, 25. Nocky, can you tell me the commentary striker's name?
Victor Gyökeres.
Look at him.
They've been talked about for 20 million. So you could argue for £45 million there, you're getting almost two hardened Championship players that have been brought through. Are you thinking of spending money that way, or the Fabios, the Guedes, the Nunez's? What when you say?
Yeah, I'm to the model of what you've just said, and the most important thing to me is that you want to play for Wolverhampton Wanderers. Obviously, you've got to have a certain amount of technical ability and to be playing the position that we need, not just a convenient signing to shoehorn in to feed the Mendes carousel. And by the way, without the Mendes carousel, Wolves wouldn't be what they are. It served its purpose.
100%.
We've had some of the best footballers and the best players, and I am very grateful. All right, though, I want to get off the carousel and just want to go and play on it when I fancy it, not all the time. I'm made to play that's the only thing. I do want to go, but I'll go when I need it. Thanks. But yeah, I want to go to that model that you just said, Tyler. I just want players that want to play for Wolves. I want to be signing players for correct positions, not just percentage player for squad. And I think we'll do that now. I think Joe Gomez will be a regular starter next season. We've seen spells of him this year. The fans just love him. He wants to win the ball. He wants to tackle. He looks like he can play a bit as well. I think he'll be in the team next year. And that £15 million or roughly that around that mark will look like seriously good business. I think it'll be him and Lamina. Dawson will probably get another year. So Sarabia was a punt. Technically a wonderful footballer, but not probably physically up to the Premier League, and wouldn't be surprised if he went. But yeah, that's the reaction to that. Let's move on to this week's version of Who Am I? Now, last week...
I wasn't here last week, and I've heard a few dodgy questions there.
So it's horrendous. She's going to be Lee Naylor's grandma or something on this one, isn't it?
She played reserve football at Molyneux on Boxing Day, 1956. This week's episode of Who Am I? I'm just reading information about and things about former Wolves players. These two don't want to lose to each other, and this is the best bit because another one wants to lose, and this is why it's fun. So I hope this sounds as good as it is on Spotify because their faces now, the tension in the room is good.
I'll make this very clear. I've no issue losing this. I just don't want to look like a tit in 20 minutes when I still don't know what the guy's name is. So I'm hoping Tyler gets it early.
They're a bit kinder this week. So who am I? I have former clubs that include Valencia and Deportivo La Coruña.
William Jose.
Right. So when you get your first shout in, yeah? Right. So you're froze out now to the end of the next question.
You see what I mean? He's like VAR, and he just makes it up as he goes along.
I'll give you a chance here, Nock. He said he won't look bad.
I'll have to beep in.
Yeah, I so far have accumulated 51 career goals and 55 career assists.
Ooh.
It's getting juicy now. I have 6 international caps and 1 goal for an African nation. I have been teammates with Mbappe and Martial. I joined Wolves on loan in 2016. Now, don't tell me it's a hard one now when I've told you that. It was look at you two. Here we go. I've scored 4 goals in 43 appearances during my last season in the Championship, but that wasn't for Wolves.
Not Benicophoba.
Here we go, Tyler. This is your setup for you nicely now. I scored past Tottenham at Wembley Stadium for Wolves in a 3-1 victory.
Elder Costa.
Nocky. Oh, he's jumped in. VAR, he's done him. Well done, Nocky.
I would have said Costa, yeah.
Well done, Nocky. See, that wasn't too bad, gentlemen.
Yeah, well done, Nocky, having 4 guesses. Well done.
So Nocky shouted at every player for the last 14 years.
He's not bitter though, is he?
Round 2 of Who Am I? I have former clubs that include Colchester, Sheffield United and Middlesbrough. Bringing it back to reality now, boys. I have accumulated 82 yellow cards in 485 appearances, but I've only been sent off once.
Loves a reducer.
Loves a reducer. Did you say Nocky?
You said Willuma?
No. He got sent off more than once, mate. I have 27 career goals and 7 assists. I was sold for £3 million when I left Wolves. Oh, look at the guesses coming in here. There was a few, actually. The people guessed Elder Costa before.
Tony didn't.
No. I've been promoted from League One 3 times.
Ooh.
I've still got the name, but I'm waiting.
Just
you ready?
Wait.
This one is the fastest finger now, guys. You ready? The last thing I did for Wolves was lift the championship trophy.
This is the trophy. It's not Card Emery.
Oh, I can't believe this is stunker. Any guesses on here? I can't believe no one's got that.
Lift the championship trophy.
Here we go.
It was Carl Emery, wasn't it?
No, he got sent off at Bristol City between Boxing Day and New Year's Eve.
Danny Bath.
Danny Bart, yeah.
2-0 knocker. Well done. This
Well,
is that.
2-0 knocker if he can have 12 goes, yeah?
Right, son, you've just been hit by your rattle then. Put that back in your pram, will you? And let's crack on with the show.
That concludes this week's episode of Who Am I? I hope you all enjoyed that. It was a little bit easier this week. It must be because Nocky's got 2 and he's happy because I couldn't stand another week of sulking on the WhatsApp group.
I don't deserve any credit for Danny Bath. It took us 45 minutes and 63 guesses each, and we still couldn't get
Mate, just pick this. Look at this on the group chat. My face laughing.
I thought it was
block him.
Steve Bull and Billy Wright. Do you know what I mean? Jeez.
Move away from there now, and we're going to move on to your questions. I hope you enjoyed that little input into the show. Adds a bit of competition and a bit of rivalry between the pundits on the show. We'll move on to this week's questions. Moving on to, and this is a great one. Jonah asks, if Wolves are winning the game 1-0 in the 80th minute on Saturday, are you still bringing on Jimenez, Adama, Matinho, etc., or would you see the game out? That is a great question. Now, before I hand it out to one of the angry pundits, all 3 of those can still do a job in some format during the game, so I wouldn't be adverse to that. Nocky?
It depends what reason we're bringing on. If we're bringing them on purely for sentimental reasons, then absolutely not.
Absolutely, that's why we're bringing them on.
I'm going to be controversial. Sorry for jumping in. I'm starting Jaume Matinho on Saturday.
Ooh.
Where you starting him?
You're telling me that guy doesn't deserve a start at Molyneux on Saturday in his last appearance.
So where would you start?
What position would you start him?
Mate, the guy's a genius. I don't care who's playing. Matinho, Jimenez for me, I'm not interested. Without being too brutal, with what's gone on, I'm not bothered. Adama, not too bothered. Jaume Matinho for me is in a different bracket, in a different category. And that guy starts the game and then he gets subbed off and he gets the ovation that he deserves. The guy's a genius.
But the only way we do that, Tyler, is by playing 4-5-1, and we'll get done then.
Don't care. Safe. Don't care.
No, I'll bring him on with 20 minutes left. Give him a 20 minutes one time.
But why?
But, Jonah, thanks for asking your question. No one's been. It's only me that's answered it. I would bring him on after 80 minutes. Yeah. So.
Sorry, Jonah.
You mean we can't start Matinho, but we can start Neves and Lamina as deep as you like anyway? The guy plays for me on Saturday all day long.
Richard Holmes asks, we have consistently a weak front 3. So how do you explain the continued not starting of the Julian Lopetegui by Sarabia? I don't think, he's a very good footballer, Richard, but I don't think he's got the physical attributes to play in the Premier League. He gets bullied a lot. Yeah, wonderful on the ball, but
where's he got bullied?
You don't see nothing games. You see him next to somebody and he's lost the ball.
What have you seen from Pedro Neto last 2 or 3 games?
A lot of effort.
I don't want effort from your wingers. I want output and predictability.
But you can look at that 2 ways, though, can't you? Out of that whole of our attacking options, do you keep any of them?
No, they all go.
So it doesn't really matter who you play, does it? They're all poor. I'd clear the entire lot out. We're not going to clear Hwang out because we're going to Korea, aren't we, for a tour? So he's going to stay.
Apparently, there's a lot of interest in him. Apparently, a lot of clubs want him.
I think we'll keep him, especially till after we come back from Korea. But the rest of them, you could get rid of every single one of them, as far as I'm concerned. And I wouldn't shed a tear. So I don't think it matters whether it's Sarabia, Neto, Podence. I don't think it really matters because we haven't got a goal in us, really, have we?
Thank you for your question and contribution, as always, to the Wolves Report, Richard. Koza asks, with the stadium redevelopment being included in the new financial fair play, do you see Molyneux being redeveloped anytime this decade? Now, I've seen that rule come in, Koza, but I'd be really surprised if it didn't change. Now, the reason being is there's a lot of big teams, Old Trafford for one of them, that have got stadiums in need of a lot of help and a lot of love. So I don't really see that being something that's got longevity and financial fair play. I think teams should be able to redevelop their ground because you want to give fans a better experience. if you're making the ground bigger, it might be beneficial long run, but I don't really see personally how that overlaps with financial fair play. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that, but I think it should be on a footballing basis in terms of your transfers and your wages, not, oh, we're making the stand better for these fans because this stadium part, like the Steve Bull, is 42 years old.
I do agree, but at the same time, you're still spending money, aren't you? So financial fair play is as much about sustainability of a football club as it is about keeping a bit of a level playing field. So if you're throwing money unnecessarily at things that you haven't got, hoping that you're going to stay up, which teams have done and gone out of business, then that's probably why it sits under financial fair play. But I'm kind of with you. I think as long as you can make a business plan as to why it works, how it works, and how you're going to pay for it, then we've got a big waiting list at Wolves, haven't we? So why wouldn't we be looking at trying to redevelop while we can? But the priority is getting the players, and if it's a players or it's a stand, and we had this before, didn't we? When Steve Morgan had a decision to make, he redid the North Bank, and we got relegated. So you've got to pick your battles, I think.
And when Wolves built the John Ireland stand, they nearly went out of business as a result of that as well. So building new stands at Molineux hasn't exactly got a good history, Tyler.
But have we been not duped again by Fosun, but they drew a lovely picture of what Molineux might look like under their regime, and we've not seen it, have we? Similar to, we're going to be the next Man City. So they've probably promised stuff or talked about stuff that they can't deliver on. And
maybe that's why they give Liam the information of that article to do some serious expectation management.
That Steve Bull stand is getting close to not being fit for purpose, to be honest.
It's not.
It's going to have to happen at some point, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not great, but at the moment, without the January signings, Wolves would have probably got relegated. So at this moment in time, if Lopetegui is to put his own full imprint on the team and play the Lopetegui way, all the money at the moment needs to be on players, squad, and nothing else. Because if we don't, Wolves will be in the same situation as they are again next season, no matter how good the coach is. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not saying to do it, but I'm just saying we've probably been duped to supporters again, thinking it's going to happen, and it's obviously not.
I think the intent was there to redevelop the ground. I do think that was the plan, but China fell off a cliff financially. Fosun were digging into that. The Chinese government were pulling back foreign assets and foreign investments. So I do think there was a desire to do that, but it just became unviable with the new rules that came in. So in the future, you've got to redevelop the ground at some point. And as you say, the John Ireland stand now is absolutely in an awful state. So I think it will happen, and I don't think it hurts to put it on your P&L in case you do get the opportunity to do it, because you're not leaving yourself any opportunity if you've not put it on as a potential business payment. So I kind of understand why you would put that in.
Absolutely. Thank you for your contribution, Koza. Next one, a tactical question. Don Jen asks, whenever a team presses, we seem to struggle. Going back 3 or 4 years, how do we change that? I think this overlaps with what I said earlier on in terms of making your team start playing out and training them. And the best form of practice is to do it on a match day. And it might look a bit ugly at times now, but the only way we're going to do that, John, is by actually playing it in games, unless we've got a centre forward to lump it to, who may be fit for next season, or there may be someone else come in, then you've got to play it from the back. And the big centre forwards don't seem to play as much in the modern game now. It seems to be more about playing out from the back. So I think the only way we get over it is by getting more practice in and more players with technical ability. I'd say particularly in the fullback area. I think Hugo Bueno is press resistant. He just needs to play more. And I think we probably need another right back. Nocky, your take on that?
Yeah, I think teams press us because I know we don't have the pace to get in behind them. We're going to play one way, aren't we? We're relatively static on how we play. But saying that, Villa pressed us and they didn't get any joy. We managed to beat them. So it's. I think teams are getting better and better at pressing now. And we do it relatively well, but it's doing it in sensible areas, isn't it? So I'm not sure we particularly struggle. I mean, you look at the teams that beat Molineux, Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs, Palace, they all press you, and we managed to beat the press and score a goal. So I'm not particularly worried about that, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, thank you for your contribution, John. I'm going to have one more question. I'd written down 10 questions, but the show has flowed through. So thank you as always at the start, a few days before, I always put on my Twitter feed. I take the questions off there. I put them on. I can never get through all of them, but I do appreciate them because they are a big part of the show. And I know myself and the guys enjoy this bit as well. So let's have a little look. One more tactical question from Sean. Why is every player's first thought to go back? No one takes a gamble with a shot or takes players on. All too safe. Tyler?
Yeah. I don't know the answer, Sean. But did we not have a shot in the end on Saturday? Or we certainly didn't have one on target. I mean, we were coming home and we heard Jamie O'Hara slagging Spurs off, saying, "How do you not have a shot on goal? 90 minutes. How do you not?" And that's Tottenham. How do you not do it? How do you not have a shot? I've got no idea, and it's my biggest frustration. And I think we're all getting frustrated on Saturday because the moans and groans were coming out when they just turned aside and played it back and started again and recycled it. And I think one of you said at the start, there's a time and a place for that and it needs to happen. But like we said, what's the worst that can happen if you have a shot?
I do think the main thing on Saturday, and with quite a few of the away games, there's been a lack of responsibility from the forward players. I would almost exclude Cunha from that because he's happy to take people on. It doesn't always work, but I've seen him go past people in multiple games. No. I'm not. No, what I'm saying is about taking responsibility. He wants to get the ball and take the team forward. No one else does that.
Like what Knocker said, part of that responsibility is getting into those positions in the first place, and he's not doing it. He's playing deep. He's playing off Costa. I'd say hiding's a bit harsh, but he's playing in a comfort zone that works for him.
He's almost an 8, not a 10 at times, isn't he?
Where's the run beyond Costa? Where's the run where's he busting his balls to get in the box and get on the end of something? And that's why we argued he's not a natural 9. And I just think we're so the word safe is spot on. We're safe and we're in a comfort zone and we need to get out of it.
Even Adama now, you don't see Adama type players on, do you? You don't see Neto take them on. You don't see Podence. Yeah, we're very sort of, we prefer recycling the ball and keeping it than actually taking a chance and trying to beat a player. And it is frustrating when you're watching it.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you to everyone else for your questions. And apologies for the questions I didn't get on. There's been some great questions, but the show has flown by, and obviously got 2 competitive beasts that want to win the quiz, so we had to do that as well. On Saturday, Wolves face their last home league game of the season. They face an Everton team in trouble, facing relegation. So, do Wolves owe it to themselves for the transparency of the league to put out their best team and try and win the game, or is it experiment time? Should we be playing people to say goodbye and farewells, or do you appease the 27,500 home fans and get stuck into them and try and win the football match? Tyler?
I'm a bit split, and like I touched upon earlier, Moutinho definitely. He was the best I've ever seen. I think Nevers has eclipsed him, so he definitely deserves game time. Raul, I'm not bothered about, if I'm brutally honest. Johnny, I'm not too fussed about. I'd like to see Joe Gomez play. I'd like to see Hugo Bueno play. I'd like to see Sarabia play. I'd like to see players playing that I've not seen recently and players that I thought have unjustly not been around the team. Adama, if he's not going to sign a new deal, I'm not bothered about, to be honest. But I think the only, from a sentimental, and I said football's not sentimental, but the only person I'd like to see play and get the send-off would be João Martinez, because I think he's elevated himself above most players for me for Wolves, and he just deserves it. That's just my opinion.
One thing about João Martinez I didn't realise, I believe that Wolves are the club he's played for the most appearances in his career. That really surprised me. So I would like to see João at some stage. But the most important thing to me on Saturday, for the integrity of our football club in the Premier League, I want to see Wolves fight and try and beat Everton. I don't want pussyfooting around. I want Wolves to go out there and get stuck in. We owe it to the other teams to do our best. We owe it to ourselves and our fans to do our best. Everton are a rival. Every team's a rival. I want Wolves to go and win the game. This isn't a walk in the park. It's the last game of the season. We've paid our money. I want Wolves to win the game.
Of course, but if you play Martino, you're not rolling out some donkey that's never played football before.
No, absolutely, and that's a fair point.
You're rolling out an elite footballer, so I'd like to think that he would feature. I mean, him, without being rude, Jimenez came on Saturday. Total waste of time, just pathetic. So there's no point. I'd rather see an under-21 striker playing than Jimenez, to be honest.
What the hell? And I thought Noki was harsh.
We need to be careful, though, don't we? Because we've got Arsenal the following week. We're not going to get anything at Arsenal. So
We don't want to end the season loss.
yeah, you don't want to
Take
lose
that
3
into
on
next
the
season.
spin. And I
Absolutely
watched
not.
Everton against
We
Brighton.
owe
and they played
Everton
really
nothing
well.
at all. They've got 3 midfielders in there that are monsters. They've got the forwards are monster. There's some big boys in there. If we are off our game, they will dominate us and they'll win. And I will not be happy about that. Sorry to jump in, Knocker.
No, I mean, you said about the integrity of the league. I couldn't give a stuff about the integrity of the league. It doesn't bother me at all. It's a squad game. We can use whoever we want, whenever we want. My concern is let's not finish the season on 3 straight defeats, and then you've lost that little bit of momentum you've brought in. Everton against Brighton, I thought were fantastic. They put 5 past them, so they look a decent outfit in that game. I know they've lost since to Man City, but there's no disgrace there. So I think we need to be relatively strong. To Tyler's point, Martino absolutely deserves a run, whether that's to start or to come off the bench, absolutely. But I want to see us starting our strongest team, or if it's not going to be our strongest team, what are we looking at for next season? So is Gomez and Lemina going to be our 2, or is it going to be Gomez and Núñez as our 2? If it is, then let's play them and let's get them into that team now to give them that experience. But in terms of, bringing on players like Johnny and players we know are going to leave, absolutely no interest in that. There's a football match to win. I think it's important that we go out there and try and finish the season on a high, because we've got a good record at home lately. So why would you want to blow that out the window because you want to give everyone a send-off that they deserve? They've all been great for Wolves. They've done a great job for us, but whether they come on and get 20 minutes against Everton or not is not going to change how we all feel about them in terms of their Wolves' career. So let's go and win the game, and then we'll worry about sentimentality afterwards. If we're 3-0 up, bring them on then.
Absolutely. Wolves in the last, I think, 2.5 months, I've got one of, if not the best record at home in the Premier League, winning games every game, not conceding. Let's take that into next season. Let's beat Everton and take it in. And even if we lose at Arsenal, then we've got a platform, continue the good home form, get the atmosphere going, get people something to enjoy. Like I said, I am a sentimental guy, but the most sentimental thing to me is Wolverhampton Wanderers, and I want them to win, and I want the best for the football club, and whatever comes via that team selection to make them win. That's the most important thing. You have been watching whatever episode you think it is, because no one believes me, of the Wolves Report, episode 64 of the Wolves Report with Chris Tyler, myself, Ryan Lester, and club captain Mark Knock. It is prediction time for Wolverhampton Wanderers v Everton. We'll start off with you, Tyler. First goal scorer prediction and score, please.
2-0 to Wolves. Dawson.
We'll absolutely take that. Knocky.
1-1. Calvert-Lewin for them, and Martino for Wolves.
Oh, is he taking the penalty if it's late on? Just going to give it in for the sake of it. I'm going to say Wolves 1, Everton 0. Mateus Cunha. One day I'll say he might score when I predict it. I hope you've enjoyed listening and watching to episode 64 of the Wolves Report. Thank you to Chris Tyler. Thank you to Mark Knock. I've been your host, Ryan Lester of the Wolves.